These last few years have made us question everything. Our relationships, our jobs, what constitutes an office, and who we are. In a world filled with chaos, confusion, and uncertainty, it's time for some clarity. It's time to start understanding one another. It's time to start understanding ourselves. We envision a world where everyone knows their why. But even more, we envision a world where everyone knows their WHY.os. Their why, their how, and their what. The operating system that drives you, that lets the world know where you stand, what your unique gift is, and most importantly, who you are. WHY.os. Are you ready?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Why Not Wednesday. I love the end of that video, Brenda, because it says, "Are you ready?" And today we have a guest who was ready. We had a great conversation almost a year ago to the day when she joined Y Institute as one of our Y certified coaches. I'm so excited to introduce Brenda. And for those of you that are veterans of the video broadcasting and podcasting, and this is Brenda's first podcast interview. So I'm excited to have you on and introduce you to Y Nation, Brenda. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Brenda. She's a CEO, founder, a culture coach, a leadership trainer. She's John Maxwell certified. She works with leaders and teams to build and maintain healthy work cultures where employees are happier, work together better, and produce better results. I mean, who doesn't want that in their workplace? So we're so excited to have Brenda as part of Y Institute and as one of our coaches. And I'm excited to introduce her to you guys. Brenda, welcome.
Thanks so much, Dan. I appreciate you having me on.
It is so good to have you. And I didn't even get to ask in the pre-show, but are you a big Kansas City Chiefs fan? Because you're coming to us from Titletown.
I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Not as big as some of my family, but yeah. I am a big fan. Yes, the game was fantastic.
We didn't watch it because I no longer watch sports just because they take up so much time. But I do like watching the highlights. And we finished watching our family movie on Sunday, and then we turned on the game for the last 6 minutes, which was the best part.
Right.
The final drive, which the best part for you and I, that me who didn't care who won, and you who cared who won, and your team won. But those Philly fans had to be heartbroken, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know if Bruce Kirk is going to be on today, but he's from Philadelphia, and he was on another call that I was on recently, and he was definitely licking his wounds. So, Brenda, let's talk about what we start the show with all the time is what's your WHY.os, and let's share it with everyone. So, Brenda's why is contribute. She believes in making a difference in the lives of others, being a part of causes that are bigger than herself. Her how is make sense. How she contributes is by making sense of things that are complex and challenging. She's really good at taking in lots of data and coming up with solutions, which makes her a great coach. And her what is trust, which means that what she brings are solutions you can trust, that you can depend on. So, Brenda, first of all, how did that, tell us how that felt to you when you first learned it?
When I first got my results, the contribute and trust were absolutely no question, 100% agree. The make sense took me a little longer. I had to think about it because I don't think of myself as a logical person, or, I always make sense. But since kind of ruminating on it, reading through the information, then I recognize that, yeah, that does fit me. Oh yeah, I do that. Oh yeah, I do have that challenge. Oh yeah, and it makes really good sense. And then now I am very aware that I say, does that make sense to people all the time? And I didn't notice that about myself before. So yeah, it's perfectly spot on.
You're bringing up something that's really cool about what Gary did in creating the Why Discovery. One of the things he loves to do is he said, I use the language that people used. When he was doing his research and developing the discovery, he used the language that people used, and makes sense was something that makes sense. People ask all the time, does that make sense? Because you are such great processors of information, and you're moving so much faster than everyone else. You're kind of almost always having to make sure people are keeping up. And
Right.
asking the question, does that make sense, is a great
Right.
way to keep up with people. So you've got, one of the things I remember that from that initial conversation you and I had, Brenda, was around your certifications. You're a John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, coach, working genius facilitator, obviously WHY.os certified, certified behavioral analysis trainer, a mental health coach, and you're an authorized partner with Everything Disc and the 5 behaviors. So when I look at that, it's like, whoa, you're pretty much anything that we want to know about ourselves. Brenda's got a certification in it. You have a lot of certifications. Which is your favorite? Which is your favorite assessment or tool that you use?
I don't know that I really have a favorite. I'm all about self-awareness. And from a personal perspective, I've taken all of them and I learned something new with each one. So I use them for different purposes.
Okay.
The why is all about recognizing what your driver is. And I use DISC for communication style, and Working Genius for how you do things, how you get work done, for productivity style. And so I think it really depends on the needs of the team. And that's one of the things I try to do in my business is customize the solutions to what the team is looking for or what they need. So I use all of them for different reasons.
So and I love your mission, right? Your mission is, let's look at that mission, to help leaders and teams relate better and achieve better results. So you come in, who's your favorite client to work with? What's like the ideal problem that they present, and how do you work with them?
I love it when there is conflict on a team, and as a result, the team's not functioning well.
Right.
So I can go in and help them work on how they communicate with one another, how they resolve conflict, or how they can sometimes turn negative conflict into productive conflict, Patrick Lencioni's word,
Yes.
and move forward better together as a team. Because a lot of times it's just in how they're connecting or not connecting with one another that's causing that friction, and it affects their work. So once we can resolve those relationship issues, the rest of it falls into place.
Excellent. And I love that your how makes sense. By the way, let me say, Jerry Fletcher says, "Hey Brenda, good to see you." So you
Hi,
remember
Jerry.
meeting at YCon. So welcome, and thank you for being on, Jerry. One of the things that I noticed in your answer is, and this is a superpower, right? You have the superpower that you like to solve problems. So you actually said, "I love it when there's conflict," and so there's conflict. There's a problem for you to solve, and that is so makes sense. A lot of people don't realize that that's actually a superpower. You actually look forward to that because now you can come in and bring a solution, which is how you contribute to the success of that team. What's the biggest challenge you've ever had? What's the one that really made you work?
Biggest challenge. Probably when the conflict is at different levels of authority. And so the person who is at a lesser level of authority doesn't feel like they can approach the person who has the authority to resolve it. So, and if the person in authority is not on board with making some changes and not willing to talk through some things, then it's very difficult to make things happen.
Wow, that sounds hard. How do you deal with that? How have you dealt with it?
Sometimes it's a matter of just saying that, I can help you. I can help your organization. But if you're not willing to do anything different, you're not going to get different results. So you tell me, do you want to keep working together? Are you willing to make some changes, or are we done? Right. So, and that's hard because, I don't want to lose the business, but if it's not working, then I'm not contributing. Right. So I need for them to be on board with making some changes if my working with them is going to be helpful.
So you're going to come in, and we know that, right? You want to contribute to their success, and you're going to help them make sense of what's going on. But if they're not ready to make changes, then that becomes frustrating for you as the coach.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this. We got Lynn Everard, who says hi, Dan and Brenda. But the captain is on, and he's our Philly guy. Welcome, Brenda. Thanks for stepping out of your comfort zone to share your gold with us. And we're going to ask you some great questions, Brenda, because this is really cool. We rarely have the opportunity to talk to one of our newer coaches on the show. So I asked you about the certifications and how you kind of as a matter of fact, when you added the WHY.os, you were like, okay, I'm done with this stuff. But then you added WHY.os. What appealed to you about the WHY.os that said, hey, you know what? I think that's something else I want to add.
Yeah, so I had decided to add no additional certifications because as a certification junkie, I would just continue to get certified in things and then not use them. So I had made a decision to sort of cut that off.
Right.
And then you reached out to me and I took the WHY.os and I discovered my WHY.os and decided that the value of having that information for my coaching clients, it would be ludicrous to pass that up. So it just adds a lot of value when I'm focused on self-discovery for my clients.
That is excellent. Hey, I want to recognize Kurt Von On, and he says, good afternoon, Brenda. And he's a great friend of the Y Institute. So Kurt, thanks for being on. So, one of the things I like doing before we talk is going through your history, and you post some really good stuff. I love one of the ones you posted recently. It was a Sugar Ray Leonard quote. It says, if you never know failure, you will never know success. What does that mean for you, Brenda?
I feel like if you are just always successful and everything always comes easily to you, then you don't recognize what an amazing thing that success is. It doesn't feel like success. It just feels like normal. And so if you struggle, then you work towards the success and then you get that endorphin hit from achievement. You might not get that otherwise if everything came really easily to you. So I think we should appreciate failure, fail forward, use it to propel us instead of to hold us back.
I love that because you're so right. I was listening to someone talk about the generations, the millennials, right? Our kids that we raised and we gave them participation ribbons and they never knew failure, right? And then they get into the real world, and in the real world, you either produce or you get fired, right? Or you don't have that client. That client leaves, right? Whatever. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, it's a different situation that we've created for them. How much are you dealing with that with the clients you work with? What's the age of the clients you're working with, the teams? Because I'm sure there are 5 generations in the workforce right now. So how do you deal with all of those age groups?
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I haven't had a lot of organizations that had that huge span under one roof, so to speak. But when I do have multiple generations in one organization or team that I'm working with, then we do talk a little bit about some of those organizational differences. And yeah, the youngest employees they grew up without that sense of achievement, without that internal drive to accomplish, because they never had to do that. And so in some cases, people view those younger employees as having less motivation, less interest, being sort of entitled. But in some ways, they have just a different perspective on work. They're really looking for purpose because they're seeking that. They need that. It's less about, I need to make a paycheck, and more about, am I making a difference? Which, feels good to me as a contribute person. But
So no, that is such a great point. And we have to embrace that. That generation is brilliant. They know so much. They grew up with technology all around them. They are so good. And we have a few on our team that, you give them a problem, they'll find a YouTube video on how to do just about anything. There's pretty much nothing stops them. They're really good at condensing time and getting through stuff way faster. So you brought up a great point. We just deal with them a little differently. Hey, Gary's on. He says, hi, Brenda. Thanks for being on Why Not Wednesday. Great to hear
Gary.
how you're having an impact by helping people solve complex challenges and being their trusted source. Sounds like a guy who knows your WHY.os, Brenda. Thanks for being on, Gary. So, how do you, and you talked about, you haven't had the 5 generations, but you have dealt with that. Ira, oh gosh, I want to forget Ira's last name, but he's on, he's one of our partners, and he talks about he's a recovering millennial hater. He actually has learned to love that generation because they get stuff done. And we just have to understand, hey, we did it, right? It was our generation that raised them. And so we've got to learn to work with them and take advantage of their strengths. I think that's what's great about the WHY.os. I think the WHY.os kind of breaks people down and says, hey, this is your motivations and beliefs. And you add to that the work you do with DISC and emotional intelligence and all the things that you do. You probably get to know people at a really deep level, so you can work with them regardless of what generation they are.
Yes, that is certainly the intent, to
Yeah.
build relationships.
So you talk about I posted today. Are you a coach that's new to coaching? You're fairly new to the space. You've been in it since 2018, 2019, but you're now in your own practice for the first time now for about a year, doing your own thing. So you took that leap from being an employee to being entrepreneur. What's been the biggest difference for you?
The biggest difference, the biggest challenge would be seeking clients. So when you're an employee, even doing the same work, I did leadership training before, but the client was there all the time. So I got to provide services all the time, which I love. And when I became an entrepreneur, then I was ready to go out and provide those services, but I had no people to provide them to. So I had to kind of learn that part. I had to learn the business strategy part and the prospecting and how do I find my leads, and all of that was new to me. So that was probably the hardest and biggest change.
I'm going to give Nancy Sayre a shout out. She's a LinkedIn coach who helps people. She also works with successful or brilliant entrepreneurs who don't like to sell. So what was your biggest challenge? You said the clients aren't there, so you have to prospect, you have to look for them, you have to decide who you're looking for. So what was the biggest challenge for you on that side of it, creating business?
I think it was learning to trust myself, because there are so many marketing type people out there that I was just suddenly flooded with advice and people reaching out on LinkedIn telling me how to do it. This is the right way to do it. And so then I was trying to do all of those things, and I don't have the bandwidth to do all of those things. And they don't all work for me because of who I am. They're not all sort of in alignment with my personality, my style, my belief system. So I had to learn to trust myself and quiet those other voices so that I would know where I was going to be successful.
Yeah. And that is so hard, right? Because everyone has an idea of how to do it. And it all sounds great. Gary mentions one of the best one of the best pieces of advice he ever got was, don't take advice from people who don't think like you do. I think us contributes have to listen to other contributes, because what they do will work for us. If you're a contribute and you listen to a better way, that's going to work really well for the better way person, but not so much for the contribute. And so do you agree with that?
Absolutely. 100%.
And so you have to kind of you build your community, right? And you surround yourself. And I think we learn from those people that are different from us for sure, but you may not be able to implement it the way that they would implement it. So what's the most rewarding part of being an entrepreneur and a coach?
It's hard to separate that from the actual service provision. My favorite thing about my job is when somebody comes back to me after I've worked with them or with their company and told me how it has changed things, given me those sort of after the fact success stories. That's the best thing in the world for me. As far as doing that for myself, because I could have that before, as far as doing it for myself, probably the ability to work with who I want to work with, and the people I've met. I've
Yeah.
met some really great people.
That is so cool. And this is your business now. And Lynn, thank you. Our beliefs are so important. It's a factor that we often overlook. So true, right? And that's the other thing I think I like about YOS is it kind of is our beliefs, right? If I was to say, look, Brenda believes in contributing, that success
Mhm.
begins when she contributes to the success of others. She believes that the best way to do that is to help people make sense of the complex and challenging. And she also believes that trust is important. Those are three really important
Mhm.
beliefs for you. And they're your top three in your why operating system. So very important. And you've been doing this now. How long would you say it took you to really feel comfortable in your skin? And like you said, stop listening to the other
Yeah.
voices, listen to yourself, and go out there and get Brenda Risner type clients.
Yeah. Probably about 8 months.
Yeah.
It was, and it was kind of back and forth. It was 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of a
Right.
thing for a while. And it was probably 8 months before I said, okay, I'm done. I know where I want to be. I know who I am. This is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to move forward.
That's awesome. So, here's the other cool part. Brenda, you signed on in February of 2022, and then we had our Y conference in October. And you came down from Kansas City. Did you drive or fly? I'm trying to
I
remember.
drove.
You
Yeah, I
drove
drove.
down from
Mhm.
Kansas and you came to New Mexico for YCon 23. What was your favorite part of coming to YCon?
It was fantastic. I loved all of it. I don't know if I can pick a favorite. The teaching was great. I learned so much. The people are great. I felt like it was a fantastic community building opportunity to integrate with those other Y coaches and feel like I was a part of that. The whole experience, kind of witnessing the perspective of the Y Institute and learning about the background and all of that, just helped with that trust piece. Right now, it built that trust between me and the Y Institute, where I feel very confident that what the Institute is putting out is aligned with what I believe. So it was great.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we're so glad you were there. It was fun to have our first live YCon because the year before we had to do it virtual because of COVID. It was so
Right.
nice to have everybody there. By the way, if you're a Y coach and you're listening, put this on your calendar, October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of 2023. We're going to be back together in Albuquerque, and our goal is to have all of you there. So start blocking your calendars and join us. Now, let me ask you this. This is the key question of the show. What was your biggest why not moment, Brenda? What's the thing you did that you said why not to, and you're so glad you did?
Yeah. My biggest why not was actually taking that leap to starting my own business. I had been doing some leadership training before, and I had toyed with the idea, I would like to do that. And it was
Yeah.
a someday thing. Maybe I'll do that when I retire. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
do that someday as a part-time hobby thing. And then we moved, and it was, I can look for another job, or why not? Let's just start a business.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
And you're in Kansas City. Did you have a lot of connections already? How did you start?
I had no connections virtually. I have a sister who lives on the other side of the metro, but as far as business connections, I started networking. I didn't know Kansas City. I didn't know what my interpretation of businesses in Kansas City. All right, there's the Chiefs, the Royals, and Hallmark.
Right.
So that was pretty much where my knowledge landed when I started. So I started doing research and attending every networking group I could find for a while. Again,
Yeah.
I had to decide where I wanted to land as I
Right.
figured myself out a little bit, but that's how I started. And social media, getting used to LinkedIn, which I hadn't done before. So
And you're doing a great job on that, by the way.
thank
Love
you.
seeing your posts every week, and I try to follow a lot of our coaches, and you've always got some very good and insightful stuff. So, how have you incorporated the YOS? Because you said this was the last tool you added.
Right.
How did you incorporate it? What was that process like? Because you were still figuring things out, I remember, but you
Mhm.
figured some things out. How is it fitting into your coaching now?
Yeah, so it's such a great tool to use at the beginning when you first start working with a coaching client. So I use it a lot as the initial thing, right? Let's get started. Let's get started by getting to know a little bit more about you and how we're going to work together. And so we look at the WHY.os and we look at the client's WHY.os relative to my WHY.os and talk through how that's gonna color our relationship. And and then we go from there for other tools if I decide to use them. And then I am just now starting to incorporate it into teamwork as well, to do the team WHY.os and do a workshop and that kind of thing. So
excellent. So you're taking advantage of some of the stuff you learned from the conference, right? Because we talked a lot about the team WHY.os, helping teams understand each other, understand the why, how, and what of the leader, the why, how, and what of the team members, and then I think understanding why they do what they do and how they go about it and what they bring, but really working and talking to them in their language which we think is so important.
Yep, I agree completely. It makes a huge difference in how the team members relate to one another.
So Brenda, tell us, you learned about Why Institute, you kind of told the story. And what was it that made you decide, you know what, that's something I want to do and I want to add? Because you were like I said, you had already told yourself no, but then you decided to add one more thing. What was the one thing that made you say, you know what, I think I'm going to add that?
Yeah, I just think the insight that it provides is invaluable. So I felt like it was something that I couldn't pass up. And to be fair, for myself, I wanted to get in on the ground floor. So I said, man, this is something I'm definitely going to do. Do I wait because I had decided I wasn't going to add anything or not? I said, no, I'm not going to wait. This is valuable as is. It's only going to get better. I'm going to start now. And so I jumped in, never looked back.
That is awesome. Well, it's so good to hear. Often we don't do that, right? In business development and sales, we don't get the opportunity to go back and talk to the clients that we brought in. So this is such a great opportunity for me to talk to you and kind of hear what your journey's been like. I hope it's been helpful for those of you that are listening out there. If you're an employee and you've got a gift and you've been using it, like Brenda, she was already doing learning and coaching and she was helping people. And like she said, the clients were coming to her, but when she went out on her own, all of a sudden it was a different world and she had to go out and find the right clients. But it sounds like your practice is thriving, doing well. You've got a lot of great stories that you've shared with us. And by the way, Brenda, Kurt says, nice site. He's already looked at your website. Great question. Fellow JMTer, do you have courses on your site or is all your training in real time?
Hi, Kurt. Yes, at the moment, all of my training is in real time. I am working on putting at least one course up this year, but it's not there yet. But thanks for the question.
Excellent. Thank you, Kurt, for contributing. So again, as I was finishing up, I wanted to make sure and get Kurt's question in there because it's a great question. But it is so good to have you back to listen to your stories. We're looking forward to having you October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, coaches. Put it on your calendars. If you're a pending coach or a new coach, put it on your calendar, October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We're probably going to be in Albuquerque, and Brenda's going to be there. So let's have a great WHY.con 2023. Any last words for our audience, Brenda?
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And if you haven't done so yet, give WHY a try.
I think that's a great way to finish. Thank you so much, Brenda. We'll see you guys next week. We've got Jerry Fletcher, who's also a WHY certified coach and a marketing expert next week. So join us next Wednesday. Brenda, have a great rest of your week. And until next week, don't forget to say, why not?
Thanks, Dan.